Hello, drunk duckers. I'm Ocean, and with me is Baines and Tanzarine. Hello.
Hello.
And today,
Hello.
hello. Today we're talking about cross-cultural influence, which is a very important thing for enriching our cultures, enriching our stories, and not making us all monocultural and boring and simple. So we mix things up, and it can be fascinating and fun, but there are also pitfalls and dangers you have to worry about from all different angles. But yeah, we're talking about cross-cultural influence, but before we get into that, got to bring up the theme song. Oh my god. Theme.
I went down to the crossroads.
That was our theme song. Oh my goodness me, it was always beautiful. Yes, so now we're going to introduce the featured comic. Featured comic. I did the featured comic, and it's the Slogs Gang Go to Comic Con. So I'm going to tell you about that now. Hello, I'm Ocean, and my feature for the week was the Slogs Gang Go to Comic Con. The Slogs Gang get together and do fun stuff. Today they're off to Comic Con. They're a cool group of friends led by the blue-haired Con. They have an easygoing Comic Con odyssey, checking out comics, cosplay, action figures, and food. The comic has a very Steven Universe feel to it in the character art style and the nature of the light, low-stakes adventure. Future chapters of the comic will be released as new comics through the creator's account. The next one is The Slogs Gang Killer Night. This is a comedy slice-of-life comic with colourful, stylized comic art. So stay tuned for those extra chapters as they come. Check out the profile of Con Slogs, because Con Slogs is the creator of this comic, and it's rated E for everyone. The Slogs Gang had a lot of fun at Comic Con, and the creator of that comic does other comics, so I hope you'll be checking those ones out as well. Alright, so now Gumwallis has not given us featured music this week because he's been too busy, so I'm going to pick another fave, and the fave I picked was Thrud, Goddess of Thunder. Big fat beats and an epic sound. This one really brings the thunder. It'd be great as the intro tune to a professional wrestling match, and indeed this Quackcast, which is actually what I use for the Quackcast. Anyway, it builds anticipation perfectly and really slams home and delivers on its promises. Epic sounds, and yeah, this is the actual Quackcast theme, but it is originally the theme tune to Thrud, Goddess of Thunder, and it was it first appeared in Quackcast number 627. So enjoy. re-release of the theme to Thrud, Goddess of Thunder. which is a comic by Takoyama, and it's rated T for teen. Hope you like that favourite theme. I did, that's why I picked it again. Okay. Right, so now we're talking about cross-cultural influence, and this is a fascinating topic. It covers so much. I mean, one of the prime proponents of this, weirdly, is say Disney. And you might think, oh my god, he's going to talk about all that, the casting black characters as white people as black characters and stuff like that. No, I'm not going to talk about that. It's nothing to do with that. So Disney sort of made a name for itself, doing various things that were basically, fairy tales that were copyright free. So how do you make a good story, make a good lot of money out of it? Well, you choose a copyright-free thing. Everybody knows the thing. These were popular, stories back in the day. Snow White and Sleeping Beauty, all that kind of stuff. Really popular. Everyone knew it. And it was good to see their take on it. And they kept doing that, getting popular stories from around the place. And of course, that was a popular story from Germany, and the other one was a popular story from, maybe France or something like that. So you've got this beautiful cross-cultural influence that's already happening, and they kept doing that. And then they've got like The Little Mermaid, which is a Danish story, I think. Oh, is it? I don't know. So they've got the little statue of her anyway. But then they've got they sort of moved on to other things, like, say, in the modern day, through their Pixar people, they've got Moana and stuff like that. So they've got all these different kind of cultural things. Encanto, which is South American people in this massive enchanted building, and they keep on giving us these interesting kind of mixes of stuff, and it's really cool. You're not just stuck with something that's just perceived to be from one single culture. You have mixes of stuff. So yeah, Disney and Pixar are a great example of that kind of thing. What about you guys? What are your favorite examples of cross-cultural influence?
I don't know if is it cross-cultural? Because
it's
it is
Americans doing it, because Disney is an
okay.
American company.
So you're saying just having people that are not part of the culture elevate and bring this culture to their home audience, so to speak.
Because they did change it, all those things. I mean, say Moana, that's depicting these Pacific Islander Pacific Islander people, but they're all speaking with American accents. They're all doing American idioms, and they're doing like American body language and all this kind of stuff. So it's very much a cross-cultural thing.
But I don't know about Disney. I mean, the one that I really liked and I was immersed and it made me eager to learn more about the culture and everything was Coco.
Oh yeah, Coco. Yeah. That's a great one. I love that.
Yeah. Is that Pixar? I think it is Pixar.
It is definitely Pixar.
Yeah. I think that is key moment of awesome for Pixar. They did. I mean, I don't know how Mexican people would rate it, but for me, it's a great gateway into being immersed in elements of Mexican culture that I didn't know, but they are very close to home because it is again a family-centric culture, very much like Greek culture is, and the way they did things felt foreign but also familiar, especially the way it was presented through the eyes of a child that serves as our guide in all of this.
So it's a story about the Day of the Dead, where a child accidentally gets transported over to the land of the dead.
And the significance of being remembered after death and all of the I wouldn't even call it a mythology, all of the cultural belief around honoring your family's dead and loving them and being connected to them even after they have crossed over is a wonderful premise.
It's a beautiful
And
story. Lovely.
yeah, it
But
was
it
so
also,
hard in everything. I mean, I loved it, the
yeah.
whole thing.
Oh, it's gorgeous. It also has like the music and the clothing and the
Mm,
costumes and the makeup, which are all
mhm.
very important parts of that
Yeah,
particular cultural celebration.
all of it.
You know, the
All of it
practices, the
was amazing.
celebrations, the food, um,
Hmm.
all, yeah, it was lovely, lovely film. It's one of my
Hmm.
favorite. I only watched it because you recommended it, and
Oh,
it was
really?
good. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So I was quite happy with that one.
Yeah, I think it
Excellent.
is easily my favorite of Pixar, and I like a lot of Pixar films. Um, on the flip side, one of the films by Disney that although I enjoy, I like it, I like the songs, I have to turn my brain off, um, is Hercules.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
Hercules.
That is like, I don't know why they did us so dirty. In the sense that this is not like they had this amazing opportunity to reflect Greek culture, either modern or ancient or a mix. And instead, it was Las Vegas in togas.
Yeah, it
And
was weird. It was weird.
yeah,
Well,
it was, yeah,
it's very
sad.
much it. Okay, yeah. So it's taking it's being more cross cultural in that it's really transporting the story into an American context in a very specific way in that Las Vegas,
Mm,
but also Borscht Belt sort of stuff because
yeah.
these characters are very much like inspired by like Jewish stand-up comedian sort of things, not racist depictions of Jews, but this like the Jewish kind of comedic influence that sort of became popular from like the 1940s 1950s,
Mm.
and that's what a lot of these characters are based on. And
Oh, I didn't know that. That makes it worse.
well, that's how I felt about it anyway. That's how it looked like to me. But because that's a popular comedic trope in
Yeah.
American culture, like these people were really like often the origins of stand up comedy in America sort of came from that kind
Mm.
of
And
history.
I don't know. I don't know why they would have done that. I mean, in the sense, uh, it felt like we were disenfranchised from our own culture watching this thing. Everything was everything was wrong in it. I can enjoy it only if I turn my brain off and say this is not a Greek thing. It's just a story. It's a fairy tale, and I'll enjoy it that way. Because otherwise, it is so jarringly alien. It feels like sorry about my dog. It feels really like they took the names, they took the like some of the visuals, and then they wore it like a skin over some kind of American culture that I don't connect to.
right.
So that for to me that is cultural appropriation. It's just that it was done at least artistically well, I guess. But beyond that, yeah.
Yes, yeah. It's a strange episode. Yeah, considering there's been so much Greek cultural influence throughout American, modern American culture in the Sword and Sandals films, which were so popular. All those millions of Hercules ones, which were made in Italy and became popular with everybody because everybody liked the muscle man. So I saw this fantastic version of one of those sword and sandal ones, except it was dubbed by this Australian comedic troupe who dubbed over everything to make it very comical. but it was one of those many Sword and Sandals films with Hercules, but with all the other muscle men from history as well. So you got Samson and various other people, and they're all in this world together. And you think, how many muscle men are there in these historical stories? There's so many different ones. They're all together. This is like, wow, rock and roll wrestling or something. They're all together. But yeah, that was hilarious. Well, actually, yeah. Speaking of cross-cultural influence, so those stories, all based on Hercules, became very popular in like the 1960s, I think. That's when that stuff was really like at its apex, and so that created the sword and the sandal sort of genre, and that kind of led up to the Conan movie, because I don't think that would have been done if it hadn't been for that history. And it was the production company was Dino De Laurentiis, who was an Italian fellow, of course. So that would have that history of Italian, sword and spear and sandal movies would have like made him more likely to do that. And that created the star of Schwarzenegger, because he wasn't really a star until Conan, and that really sort of also gave the whole action movie genre, 80s action movie genre, a real kind of like shot in the arm, because before that you really didn't have that kind of feel of action movies. You just had it starting, and then wow, the 80s action movie really started with people like Schwarzenegger and Stallone and stuff like that. Very much that. So yeah, there's amazing cross-cultural stuff. That's what it can produce. It can result in exciting things like that.
Yeah, and that is where you get the best out of everything, because you don't need, like, it doesn't offend anyone. Is what I'm trying to say, because the way it has been concocted, like the mix is done in such a way where nobody enters the story feeling like, oh my god, what am I going to see about my like presentation of me, which is the problem films like Hercules. Conan doesn't have that. I'm gonna go watch Conan the Barbarian. Yeah, it might have some Roman and Greek influences. It will also have like Germanic tribe influences and what have you, and Mongols and whatever. But nobody is gonna go watch Conan the Barbarian to learn about any culture.
Yeah, it was mixed up for something new. I mean, even the creator of it, Robert E. Howard, had created new kind of pre-historical people, the Stygians, who are like black-skinned with blue eyes. So already he's creating different kind of people that don't exist. So he's not just saying, yeah, black people are evil. He's saying, no, these are different people. And his Sumerians, I think they're called, which is spelt differently from the historical series, who the Conan's part of, who are dark skinned with black hair, so not the famous white skinned blonde haired people who who are traditionally the heroes in a lot of stories from the 1920s and 30s, because there was that weird Aryan mythology that was really popular back then. But yeah, so in the movie we've got of course all the sword fighting people were trained by a Japanese sword master. So again, you have cross-cultural influence, and a lot of the costumes were based on Japanese traditional costumes as well, in a certain respect. The music was by Basil Polidorus, who did this beautiful operatic kind of theme that was his fictional version of what these historical people would have been, having as their processional music and their, these exciting epic pieces of music. So yeah, there's a whole lot of cultural influence that I really appreciate with that kind of effort. So there you go. You can really sort of drill down into it and find a whole lot of new and interesting things.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that is where I think you should mix and match. You should dabble in everything. You should experiment with everything because that's where you get amazing artistic results. And I would say that fantasy and science fiction, conversely, is where you get to easily have like a blank canvas and you use every culture as a paint and you can mix and match. Uh, at least that's how I do it in fantasy.
Right.
Uh,
It's good that way. It really does show this amazing mix when you are creative in doing that. There's a lot of modern fantasy that is absolutely not creative and not interesting because all they do is just supplant purely 100% modern people into
yeah,
a fantasy world. Like they've got modern haircuts, modern clothes, just slightly changed, and it shits me. I don't mind saying it really shits me. Like,
I have to say,
give some
one thing that,
escapism for God's sake, you
yeah,
bastards.
even then, I mean, a pet peeve that I have, and I have been avoiding most of those titles, I'll be honest, is this new wave of young adult fiction that really just takes uh, Greek myth, especially, but not only Greek myth, Roman myths, uh, Norse myths, what have you, but especially Greek myths because they resonate with me more, obviously. Um, and they sort of give it the feminist treatment or give it the modernized, I am gonna make it better because I'm so modern and smart. I hate that. And especially because most of these, I'm not saying all, but most of these authors have very little grasp of the significance of the myth that they are dabbling in and what
Mm-hmm.
the whole like why is the myth there, why does it exist, what is it trying to teach the people that created it. So they
Right.
are like, oh yeah, they were all, misogynists back then. So now I'm going to make it better with my modern ideas and all of that. And I'm not saying that ancient Greece wasn't like a stupid patriarchal society. It was. But there are so many myths where women, for various reasons, are a lot more assertive and prominent. And this is taken away from them with this
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
nobody considers that okay, you are talking about this woman in myth that has made it to you for being dynamic, for besting men, for fighting wars, for what have you, and you are going to give her the feminist treatment. See where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, I was talking to someone about this the other day, the fact that people redefine re-examine history from the wrong perspective a lot of the time because okay, so there's this image that of history where we've got men winning all the wars and stuff like that and being the generals and the kings and making all the decisions, and people think, oh, but that's this, and that must have mean that women were excluded and women were put down as second class citizens and stuff like that. So that's their immediate thought about it, but they don't realize that, hang on, the history is actually done from a patriarchal perspective. So it's putting like these kings and generals and stuff like that as the important people in history when they're not bloody really the important people in history. They're just from this person's perspective. Whereas these women in history were just as important. Maybe they weren't being a general or a king or something like that, but those people don't make history in reality. Like we know from our present day, politicians and generals and stuff don't frickin' make history. You know, they have very, like day to day, these people are just like jokes to us in reality. Like the people who really make history are the people who are actually working and functioning in the real world.
Yeah.
So really, the part where women are wiped out of history isn't the fact that, you know, they're not soldiers and stuff like that. It's the fact that the people who wrote the history were only focused on the soldiers. So you've really got to go back and sort of think about, okay, so what really made the society? Who were these people who actually, you know, functioned in the society and stuff like that? And work at it from that perspective. But I was just thinking from you saying, you know, about like giving the feminist treatment. It's not really feminist treatment. It's like a childish version of feminism, because you're robbing the person of their real agency and you're giving them this masculine idea of agency, which is not truly where.
And it's not only that, you are not even highlighting the issues, because of course there were many issues about women being confined in certain roles and not having certain rights and all of that. But you're not showing that. And like the biggest thing was, there was this author, not going to name what author it is, that supposedly gave Penelope and Helen and a couple of other women in the Odyssey and in the Iliad the feminist treatment. And the only thing that happened was that it was just the same story, man-centric, male-centric, just talked about through the perspective of one of the women that watches from afar and narrates, but she's not an agent in any of this. That was one of the things. Like, what is that your feminist treatment? That's one of the things. And the other thing is that they admitted that some interview or whatever, that they hadn't read the Iliad. They hadn't read the Odyssey at all. Like they went off an experience of the Iliad and the Odyssey from reading from secondary sources and possibly Wikipedia or something like that. And the thing is that had they read it, they would have seen that Helen is not vilified in the Iliad. She is portrayed as a victim and as someone that has agency. Penelope is not passive. She is the other side of Odysseus. She is his match, and she is the one holding down the fort, or he would have lost his kingdom.
And she has an incredibly hard job there, and she manages it for years without Odysseus.
Exactly, and she's the one. She is the queen, and she remains the queen, and she handles hordes of contenders and all of that. So
very, very
that's
cleverly.
Exactly, because that's why they married, because they found each other and they are kindred spirits, and that's exactly what the Odyssey shows. And especially when they meet again after he has returned and everything, it shows how their wits clash and they test each other and before they can put their guards down and be a power couple. They are a power couple.
That's right.
So, yeah, and it annoys me that people are going to know the Odyssey and the Iliad through these very popular books that are wrong. And that, for me, that is cultural. You are appropriating my culture. You are not presenting it properly, which would be celebrating my culture, if that makes sense. So yeah, sorry, rant over. I had to say this.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose another subject where people wrongly view the past through a modern lens, sort of mess it up because they view it through a modern lens, but in a dumb way. With the idea that we are so more advanced and so more emancipated than people in the past. Like, God, get over yourself, you idiot. but we won't talk about that so much. But yeah, let's see. Go back into the idea of cultural influence. So where do we see that? I mean, all right.
Well, Star Wars is my fave. It's my go-to.
Okay.
The
Star
original
Wars.
Star Wars.
All right, we've got a lot of stuff in Star Wars. Yeah.
Tons of stuff. The
Got
samurai.
the Hidden Fortress. Yeah.
Yeah, the Hidden Fortress. You have Vader, who looks like a samurai, and then the lightsaber duels of samurai. You have the smaller ships with their World War II style. Is it World War II style dogfights?
Yeah, World War II.
Um,
World War One is
yeah.
biplanes running really slowly in
Yeah.
circles and stuff. So yeah.
Exactly. And then the Flash Gordon, obviously the influence of, I mean, a lot of this is American stuff, film history from the Flash Gordon shorts and stuff like that. But you have the Japanese.
Yeah. I would say like some Westerns. Yeah.
Western, yeah.
Some Westerns are basically a mix of Japanese and Western iconography and culture. Like A Fistful of Dollars isn't the one that is.
Yojimbo.
Yeah, thank you. I
Mm-hmm.
was trying to remember the title. And that is gorgeous. Gorgeous. Doesn't take away from anyone, and I love it. So yeah.
Oh yeah, there's amazing stories and the cross cultural influence. Yeah, like you say, like those Japanese things where they influence Fistful of Dollars, but of course, Westerns influenced that Japanese samurai movies to begin with. So it's all like backwards and forwards. It's beautiful, and then they influence the because so these Westerns were made in Italy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then those Italian Westerns go to influence back to American Westerns.
Exactly.
Which is incredible.
Exactly. Or to go like with something more modern. Take the Last Airbender. Avatar: The Last Airbender. I can talk. I promise I can talk. The Last Airbender. It is a fantasy, but it is a mix of different Asian populations and cultures presented in a fantastical way and all of that. But it is such a gorgeous piece of work with all the inspirations there for you to explore yourself and find the origins. Like where does this come from? Like Basing says Chinese, and the Fire Nation is mostly Japanese, and so on. So you've
got Eskimos in there.
Yeah, exactly, and all of that allures people to learn about cultures that they otherwise wouldn't have sought out.
People like to say, "Oh, you can't use Eskimos," but you can, because saying Inuit is wrong, because not all northern people are Inuit. That is even more wrong than saying Eskimos. There's Aleuts and all kinds of things up there. So.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of different tribal groups. Aleut? I don't know. It's hard to pronounce. So. That's true. Now, there's another one I was thinking of. Oh yes, the famous story, 1001 Arabian Nights. So that is a very, very famous story from, I don't know how long ago it's from. Like it was probably, I don't know, the 1800s or something like that.
At least, like at the earliest.
So these stories are from all over the place. So some of them are actually Arabian. Some of them, people don't even know where they're from. There's such a freaking mix of stories. And I think they're translated by a French author. But people dismiss them and say, "Oh yes, but it's just a hodgepodge. It's not really Arabian." And some of these stories are set in China, but they're not really Chinese at all because they're like got a whole big Arabian kind of like culture and all that kind of stuff, just with Chinese names and like. But in reality, it's a beautiful example of a cross-cultural mix that has gone on to inspire and influence all aspects of our modern culture. So you go back and see, the Alibaba and the 40 Thieves, and how many times people have done stuff based on that, and the idea of a genie in a lamp, which is incredibly influential, and the Three Wishes trope, and how that's sort of gone down in culture in various ways. And we still have genies popping up. Even the word genius is based on the whole genie, and that goes back to jinn. The idea of elemental spirits and ifrits and stuff like that. These ancient pre-Islamic Arabian ideas that, because of things like 1001 Arabian Nights, are part of our modern culture now, which is an amazing piece of cross-cultural influence. So I just love that. It's wonderful. If we didn't have that, then we would be missing out on so much in our culture. So yeah, go for it with cross-cultural stuff.
Yeah.
I think one of my favorite versions of the Arabian Nights was with this Indian actor. I can't remember his name, but it's a black and white film done in maybe the 50s or something like that. He was the actor in the version of the Jungle Book, I think. There was.
I didn't see it. Was it Mickey Rooney?
Mickey Rooney, you dickhead bag. Oh dear, what was his frickin' name? He was in a movie called Black Narcissus.
Oh.
Okay, this will tell me. Google will tell me. Oh, Sabu. Amazing actor. So he got to play Aladdin, I think. So yeah, that is one of the best, probably my favorite version of Aladdin. This excellent black and white film.
All right.
So watch that. Don't watch the stupid Disney. I don't know. I can't really say because I've never really watched the Disney version, so maybe it's good. Who knows?
Oh, you mean the animated or the?
Yeah, the whole Robin Williams thing.
Right.
Never actually seen it because I loved the Sabu version so much that I didn't want to see any others.
Right.
Oh dear. So what about you guys? Chance, you've mentioned The Last Airbender, which has had a couple of different versions now. Oh Jesus, it's had 3 different versions that I know.
The
of, 2
original,
different
the
animation
original
series.
one.
Yeah.
The original one. Everything else is never going to be that storm in a bottle that the original series was. Like the original series is the one that is worth it, in my opinion. At least yet.
Yeah.
Mm.
So it's a pretty epic and a very long series, the first one. Then we've got another, so you say the original, but there is another extra one. I can't remember what it's called. Legend of Korra. That's it, Legend of Korra. And then there's the live action one, which everyone hates.
Let's give a thumbs down on that one.
I don't even know why they did that. So, Baines, what's your favourite cross-cultural thing? I'm sure you have many. Well, Star Wars you mentioned.
I guess it would be Star Wars. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't really know beyond that, or nothing's jumping to mind anyway.
Just pick something you know, and maybe there will be cross-cultural stuff in there you didn't realise.
Good chance there will be.
Yeah.
Big Trouble in Little China, one of my favorite.
Oh my God! Well, that took the whole like zeitgeist of Hong Kong-based supernatural kung fu films and turned into a thing before Matrix was even a glint in Wachowski's eyes.
Right.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
No one else was doing that. It didn't turn into a big hit like it should have back then for some reason. But that's just an incredible film. That mixing American cultural action hero stuff with that Chinese, well, Hong Kong based stuff. So not Chinese. That was really a Hong Kong film industry thing with these amazing actors. Just incredible.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah.
Another I want to mention is Blue Eye Samurai, which is created. The showrunners are a mixed race couple, and they have an amazing representation of both in there in so many ways. And there is also the fantastical element and a whole range of other things. I think that they have done a superb job of showing, like giving you a representation of more than one culture in a place where it is extremely tough being something else than the dominant culture. So that is excellent work. Highly recommend as well.
Yeah, man, I got to get in and finish that. Is it on Netflix or Prime or Netflix? Okay, I don't have Netflix anymore. Yeah, I'll find a way.
You become a criminal to watch it.
I won't do that. Can't do it.
Yeah.
I read an article one time, or I read part of an article. I don't remember who wrote it or where I read it, but it called the Big Bang Theory cultural appropriation. Which
That's interesting. Okay.
Oh, I haven't seen it, but why? Why would
So
it?
it's this really was a super popular like mainstream sitcom. It's about quote unquote nerds and geeks. So these guys are, physicists and engineers and they're very very intelligent guys, and they're obsessed with Star Wars, Star Trek, comics, Doctor Who, all of these quote unquote nerdy, geeky pop culture things. And the article, I think, said, well, they're taking the culture of people who are actually into those things and just sort of reading, online and giving these lines and giving these characteristics to these characters, but it's just in a paper thin way. They're sort of making these dorky, nerdy characters love this stuff, and it's really a misrepresentation of what that stuff actually is and what the people who love it are actually like. I think that's what the article was saying.
Well, it's quite true in a lot of ways. So.
Yeah, it struck me as true, and
It's a good example of cultural appropriation.
yeah.
But yeah, like you say, it's doing it this superficial nerdiness, and the actors do a great job. They're all excellent actors. I love them.
Oh yeah, very good.
But yeah, it is a superficial version of nerdiness because when that was filmed, the fashions that people were wearing these were meant to be nerdy looking people. But when I saw it originally, I thought, oh, what's this? This is based on a bunch of artistic hipsters? Why? Because that's what hipsters were wearing back then. No nerds ever wore clothes like that and ever presented themselves in that way. This was pure hipster stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was they got the look wrong. But yeah, like you say, the culture is very much very, very superficial, and the whole idea behind it is they're not really like celebrating nerdism. The whole idea is like your nerdism can be cured through sex. That's basically the theme of the thing. Through contact with women. Women cannot actually be nerds. They can try and pretend and think they can understand nerdiness, but they can't actually be nerds. And your nerdity will be cured if you have sex.
I wonder. I think they had some nerdy females. I haven't seen enough of the show to really say. But go ahead, Tance.
Just the fact that you need to cure the nerdiness is a problem.
Yeah. Well, the females are not really nerdy. That's the thing. They think they're nerdy, but they're not actually nerdy because they always like secretly despise their male counterparts for being a bit too nerdy, and they think, oh, you're lucky to be with me because I'm a woman and you're actually getting contact. And you think they don't realize that's like amazingly sexist in its idea. That that you're making these people different, whereas they should be exactly the same. And yeah, oh god, but yeah. The actors were good, and there's some good jokes, and the thing that really makes you fall in love with those kind of shows isn't the premise, it's the characters. And the characters were good enough to make you fall in love with them. So if you can get past that whole stigma and the whole setup, and you can fall in love with the characters, then good for you, and you can enjoy it. So
totally, yeah. I never mean to suggest that like people shouldn't like it or whatever. Like,
oh no, I have in the past.
Enjoy.
Though. So I'm sort of I'm sort of going back on that.
Yeah, and the thing I would like to say on, as long as you know what it is and what it isn't, why not enjoy it? I enjoy Hercules. I had the CD with the songs. I really like the songs, for example. And I really like the way that the story was set up. I just know that it is not representative of my culture, and that's all. That's all. So if you know what it is and what it isn't, why not enjoy the artistic investment that has gone into such a thing? So
it can be reasonably well done. Yeah, as long as it's not racist or something, then yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. Let's think of some more things that have this cross-cultural influence when it can be a problem. Like, all right, one of the things I think can be a problem is, say, we've got Batman. All right, so the Christopher Nolan Batman's movies, and there was the first one where we had, I don't know, it's called The Dark Knight Returns or something. And so there's Ra's al Ghul, which is Liam Neeson, I think, plays the Ra's al Ghul. And yeah, so, but that's based on this trope about, oh, we've got these Eastern sort of Asian influenced people sort of training in this secret kind of mountain world and these Asian martial arts and stuff, but none of them are really Asian, and they're all kind of the European people doing it, and that feels to me like a very traditional but very obvious cultural appropriation to have that. Like, if you're going to put someone away in like some kind of Nepalese or kingdom in Bhutan or something like that, actually make them Bhutanese or Nepalese, and don't just stick a bunch of Europeans in that place. So yeah, that's an example of inappropriate cultural influence, I would think. That's one thing.
So they had a bunch of Europeans in those scenes in.
From what I remember, like Liam Neeson was Ra's al Ghul.
So well, right, yeah,
he Irish guy.
Yeah, he was an Irish guy who was there. He wasn't representative of most.
I'm impressed that you remember the name. I was racking my brains. Remember
Ra's al Ghul?
Yeah.
Most of the time I can't remember this stuff, but sometimes it just pops into my brain just by magic, and it's very helpful.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I suppose that a lot of it isn't really intentional. It's more like we want, butts in the seats. So we're going to cast famous actors to do certain things. And too bad, so sad that it doesn't employ the actual proper ethnic actors. But yeah, I would agree. I would like to see something that is actually Bhutanese and
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you're representing a mountain kingdom of people. You might as well actually have them rather than oh yeah, they're just like a mercenary evil group that just happens to be in this kind of region and happens to have all their cultural traits and happens to be using swords, happens to be using martial arts and stuff, and the clothing and the costumes and everything.
yeah.
So yeah, that was a bit weird to me because that's how people would defend it. They would say, yeah, but they're like an organized criminal gang, but come on.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are better examples. I think some of the Marvel movies do a good job at it. Sometimes they go a bit silly and they can be a bit too careful, which can turn into crap. But they can do a good job too. Like there was that one, the Legend of the Rings or something. I can't remember what it was called. Shang-Chi or something.
I
You've
haven't
got
seen.
these
Haven't seen it.
yeah, but that has a sort of a Chinese influence and martial arts and stuff like that, and it's not cultural appropriation.
Mm-hmm.
It's like really kind of well done. You've got a lot of martial arts based stuff and
Yeah.
Chinese type kung fu and stuff with actual Chinese actors, and it's awesome.
I think the important thing, it's easy not to culturally appropriate while dabbling in cross-cultural subject matter, and the key to it is just to be respectful and also to get some advice. I mean, call in a couple of advisors that are from the cultures you are going to mix and match and get their advice, and you're
Hmm.
good to go. And that's all there is to it. So it's
Yeah,
not
that's
hard, is what I'm saying.
that is an important thing. But yeah, when Marvel does it right, they do it well. There are examples where they don't do it right, and they be a bit silly. But say, what was that? Black Panther. So in that, you've got cross-cultural influence in that you have like this fictional African country that's basically a microcosm of a million different African cultures because you've mixed in all these different so they've got these different kind of tribal groups all together that make up Wakanda, but they're sort of based on stylized versions of different smaller like tribal cultures, and that aspect was really cool. So it's not just one huge like homogenous melange and mixing all of a whole lot of like African cultures into one group. They didn't do that, and that would have been crap. Instead, they said, okay, so this group here, they come from this part of Wakanda, and this group here, they come from this part of Wakanda, and so they have influences from this realistic tribal group, and these people have influences from this. So that was a really good thing because it shows the diversity of the influences that you can have. Because Africa is one of the biggest continents on the planet with a huge variety of different cultures and peoples, just massive, with no relationship to each other whatsoever. So to have that diversity was really important for this kind of thing, rather than homogenizing. So that was done well. That was a great example of something.
Mm.
So yeah, I like to hold that up as a good example.
Yeah.
If you got any more? I don't know. I was trying to think of some Canadian things, but it's hard because I haven't seen Canadian stuff for. Well, I actually have. I've been watching the what was that, Republic of Doyle, where it shows it's mainly based in the Labrador kind of region.
Okay.
And it's like the Newfoundland and all that kind of stuff. So it's mainly based, which is a very Irish influenced part of Canada.
Yeah.
Strongly Irish, and there's a bit of French stuff as well. So it's a little bit of cross cultural stuff there. So you've got French and American, and everything sort of mixes in that little nexus in
Right.
that Canadian region. So that's quite interesting. Oh, okay. Something else I saw the other day. A movie on Amazon Prime. It was called Five Blind Dates. So this is a film that was influenced by the American hit Crazy Rich Asians.
Okay.
So it's an American-based hit, but it's expatriates, Chinese people in Singapore, and they're having some, great kind of big wedding, and that was fascinating because it shows an aspect of Chinese culture you don't normally see. It's not Chinese culture within China; it's Chinese culture within Singapore. And the Five Blind Dates is another interesting thing because it's Chinese culture within Australia, and Chinese culture specifically within Sydney and I think Townsville in Queensland. And so that's quite interesting because that's not something that you see very often. So you've got a cross-cultural influence from China, like third and second generation Chinese people in Australia, and how their culture is quite, very specific to those people in Sydney and to those people in Queensland, and how they sort of cope with that in the modern world, and they cope with old traditional influence from their parents and their grandparents, and how they reconcile it with living in the modern day Australia. So yeah, that's an interesting film. Five Blind Dates. It's not a great film, but it's pretty fun.
Huh.
So yes. Any other things, you guys? Chance, you watch a hell of a lot of Korean stuff. Your K-dramas. Is there a lot of cultural influence there from other things, or are they very much Korean?
I'm not sure that I can tell, in the sense that if, for example, there are many influences between different Asian cultures, I don't think I would be able to tell. So I don't really know about that. There are. It depends on the Korean because now I have been also watching lots of Chinese, because you can never have just one type. You have all the dramas, all the Asian dramas I watch. So what I have seen is that you get a lot of cross-cultural elements in modern dramas. Like, for example, uh, take one of the most famous K-dramas like the K2 or the Healer and all of that are modern action dramas. They get uh, Western influences and a lot of mixing of the Western elements of culture together with the local Korean one. And you can see, I mean, it is very easy to see, and you even see how stuff from the West, like Christianity or how they dress, uh, Western dress versus traditional Korean dress, and where it is used, where it isn't used, and all of that. You can see a lot of the mixed influences there, which is fascinating to me. In the historical dramas, no, I think it is very purely Korean, or at least to me, as an outsider, is what it looks like. So.
Well, actually, you brought up an interesting. So Christian influences in Korean stuff and Korean history. Well, there's a very strong, I think, Christian. It's Catholic, I think. Massive Catholic influence in Korea,
Yeah,
and that's historical, and that's stronger there than a lot of other places, which is cross-cultural.
yeah,
Like, it's not
and they
just
have
religion. There's a deeper cultural influence from that.
one of the best, like now you jogged my memory. There is this horror Korean drama called The Guest. Highly recommended if anyone likes horror, um, or elegant horror. Let's put it that way. I mean, it has gore, but it doesn't use it gratuitously. Um, so this is the story of basically exorcists that are going after this demon, and you have a Catholic priest a shaman, a Korean shaman, and an atheist. And this is all
Whoa.
together, which is fascinating culturally and plot-wise. So,
Yeah.
Fascinating mixture of things, cross-cultural all the way. All right, thank you very much for listening to Quackcast number 703 of my generation. With me has been Tance and Bames. Bye-bye, everyone.
bye-bye.